Ohio State getting the legs all the way ramped up for their big win against Michigan, taking Rutgers out to the woodshed. Final score in Columbus with Joel Klatt and Gus Johnson on the call. 42-9 was the final in Columbus. We'll react to this game. We'll break it down, and then we also will take a quick peek at what it maybe potentially says about the old Buckeyes heading into the game against the Michigan Wolverines in Ann Arbor. Before we do that now, make sure you are subscribed. A ton of content with your Buckeyes, with the game, with everything revolving around the greatest sport on the face of planet Earth in college football on this channel year-round. Appreciate y'all being dialed in. Appreciate y'all being subscribed. A lot of Buckeye fans already have, so thank you for that. But if you haven't, no time at the present. Appreciate y'all being locked in. So here's what I love, man. Just off rip, I love seeing that run game ramp up a little bit. And not just like the production in the run game, because it's nice to see that too, but it's nice for me personally to watch Ohio State make a commitment to the run game. Not that they hadn't previously, but not like this. Like, here's my thing. I don't think it's a coincidence that Bo Jackson got the most carries he's gotten all season long before you go play Michigan. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think what Ryan Day is doing is saying, all right, now, we're going to have to run the ball next week. We got to be the more physical team next week. So, therefore, I want Bo Jackson not just having his feet wet. I want his feet soggy. I want like gross wringing the socks out levels of wet feet soggy for Bo Jackson or for the run game. Because at this point now, you don't really have too many reservations around what your passing game is. Like Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith didn't play in this game. I personally am not a doctor or in the building in Columbus or reading any tea leaves on the injury reports, but I'd be wildly surprised if Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate didn't sit this game out to be 150% healthy for the game against Michigan. So maybe that factors in a little bit with how much you ran the football. But I think Bo Jackson having the most carries he's had all year and looking pretty solid doing it outside of one unfortunate fumble should be a confidence builder for what Ohio State is going to be. Because in this game against Michigan now, you have got to be two-dimensional to beat the Wolverines. Just like you have to be. You got to bring every single tool in the toolbox to the table, and if the game dictates to where you got to lean on one tool more than the other, then great. But I would much rather have a Bo Jackson all the way ramped up, warmed up, ready to roll going into the game than trying to get him up to speed in real time in that game. Now, this isn't saying Bo Jackson still hasn't had a lot of carries this year, but you hear what I'm saying. 19 carries in this game, looking good doing it. I'm all the way here for that. And also, I want to make sure I say one more thing. Ryan Day's been very strategic with the way that he's allocated snap counts. He mentioned as much in his press conference leading up into this game. He was speaking more to the defense, but I think it applies to everyone across the board here, saying we've divvied up our snap counts more or less in a certain fashion to where now you see our team arriving with violence. Check the calendar. It's November. Not everybody is arriving with the bad intentions we're arriving at on the defensive side of the football, and the same thing applies for the offensive side of the football and for what Bo Jackson is doing toting the rock. Now, just a little quick note here, a little just JD's margin notes here. Lincoln Kienholz got a little bit of burn here in different design quarterback run situations. He threw it a little bit. I wondered if the same logic around Bo Jackson getting ramped up applies to Lincoln Kienholz getting ramped up. I'm not saying Lincoln Kienholz is going to go out there and have just this huge role against Michigan, but I do think there's something to be said for, one, making Michigan prep extra for another quarterback and things he could present, and also the idea of Lincoln Kienholz being a little bit more familiar with the live bullets in the situation the week before the biggest game of your regular season. Just food for thought, something to keep an eye on. It's also just nice if you're an Ohio State fan to verify that you do have a deep receiving room and a dog at tight end and Max Clare. Like, you were never worried about your level of talent in that room, but everyone just feels better when they get to double check something. Like you leave the house and you're like, man, did I lock the door? I think I did. You go double check. You feel much better about it than if you had just left the house and you hope your door is locked. Same process here. Like Max Clare going over 100 yards. You think Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate will have the most massive impact of anyone on your roster that's catching a football for you next week. But having Max Clare go for over 100 yards is never a bad thing. Also building chemistry with him and Julian Sain even more than they already have this year. Never a bad thing, so that's got to be encouraging for you. Now, here's my arguably biggest takeaway from this game, and it's kind of a sleeper assessment, but roll with me here. You learn a lot about a team and their competitive DNA when they're up. Like, yeah, you learn about teams when they're down too, obviously. What's your culture? What's your ability to not panic and all those things? But, like, what's your internal standard when you're up by 30? I see Rutgers drive down the field against mostly the backups for Ohio State and find a way to get in the end zone. And so Ohio State, they're still handily winning the game. Now, your boy still is here sweating out a little bit of the live bet for them to cover, neither here nor there on BetMGM. But Ohio State's still got this game at hand. Not really a discussion at this point in the game. But the broadcast pans to a shot of Caleb Downs on the sideline. He looks pissed. Again, he's not in the game. It's mostly backups at this point. But he's so frustrated that they gave up a touchdown in the game. That, to me, it's not uncommon across college football for that to be like a temperature for defenses if they've played a good game, to have the backups go out there and ruin it when it comes to not giving them a touchdown. But that, to me, just, it felt a little bit more than just, oh, I'm upset we gave up a touchdown. It felt a little bit like, man, we didn't check our standard of excellence. Not just us, but like us as starters didn't check our standard of excellence for getting the backups ready to play. Us as a unit didn't check our standard of excellence by being as elite as we intend to be every single week. And it's not about winning the game. It's about playing to what we expect to play to. Because when we go play Michigan next week, it's going to be about our standard. It's going to be about being at our very best. So, again, that to me just felt like it's not the end-all be-all. It's not the most telling thing in the world, but I think that to me says, okay, this Ohio State team has got a certain temperature about themselves, a certain internal way of doing things about themselves, and that's what all the best teams have. Like, you go look back at old Alabama teams. They are up big in the fourth quarter, and you see Nick Saban laying into somebody during a national championship game. There's stories about Tua Tagovailoa throwing a game-winning touchdown pass in overtime over Georgia, and Nick Saban goes and talks to him in the locker room and is like, why'd you take a sack? Like, he doesn't think it's funny. They just won the national championship. He's like, we did not play to our standard there, Tua. Yeah, you threw a game-winning touchdown pass, but you shouldn't have taken a sack the play before to where we have to call that. So just something to keep an eye on here. I think that lends itself a little bit to what you are looking to gauge in this game against Michigan next week. Because it's never been about talent for Ohio State. You could argue Ohio State has been as talented or more talented than Michigan in all the games they've lost to this point. Like, I think that's a fair discussion to have. But the traits and the DNA and the competitive genetics of this team, I like a lot seeing Caleb Downs frustrated that they gave up a touchdown on a drive that really doesn't matter overall to the script of the game, to the final score of the game. Now, going to Michigan, one more thing I'll say. I like how many guys on this Ohio State team that aren't coming into the game with the burden of the last 4 losses. Like, I'm sure they feel it. Of course, you take this game seriously. Ryan Day still obviously feels that burden, but like, there's 8 new starters on defense for Ohio State. They don't know losses to Michigan. Julian saying, yeah, he was on the team last year. He wasn't the starter when they lost at home. On the sideline, sure, but like, he's, I don't think, wearing what that loss was a year ago or battling with it mentally. Matt Patricia, sure, he wants to prove himself, of course, as more than he already has at this point in the year. It made me eat crow, essentially, for what I had to say about him when they first hired him. But, like, he's not familiar with the loss of losing to Michigan. And so, while there's a certain degree of, like, you'd like to have this team motivated and chomping at the bit and frothing at the mouth to get revenge, like, there's something to be said for, no, we're free of all that. We don't have the negative, venomous, poisonous feelings internally of what Michigan has done to us in the past. We're just going to go out there and play ball. Us playing ball to this point in the year has been more than good enough to be the best team in college football, so we're just going to go play our game, and there'll be emotion for sure, but you go play your game, you should be good enough to get it done. Obviously good enough to beat Rutgers, and I think they set the table for themselves very nicely to play their best ball next week in Ann Arbor, and it'll be a great filter for us as to Ohio State and the progress they've made internally since what happened last year. Ohio State fans, let me know your vibes around this game, but more specifically, the game next week in Ann Arbor. Cato on the 1s and 2s. Myself, JD PicKell, we appreciate y'all. We love y'all, man. We're going to keep this party rolling, and we will see y'all next time.